Okay.
So let's sit comfortably, but kind of straighten our backs a little bit. So allow all of the energy from the Kundalini on up to flow, closing our eyes gently. And let us take a few breaths, long, slow, easy breaths. Breathing in the breath of God.
A little louder, Mom.
Breathing in the breath of God. With each breath, allowing ourselves to go deeper into that inner sanctuary where we meet and greet the Lord of our being. With each breath, let us allow ourselves to fall into it. Fall into the moment, fall into this place of worship, surrendering. Letting go, freeing ourselves of anything we may have carried in with us tonight. And we honor our willingness to surrender. Our willingness to give over everything to the Holy Spirit, into the Holy Spirit's care and keeping. We surrender our will and our way. Our only desire, God, is to know you more. To feel the energy and the power of your presence within every cell of our bodies. To feel the love that flows when we let go of our own will and surrender to yours. As our elder brother said, let thy will be done. With every in-breath, we go deeper and deeper into you. We fall into you. We flow into the healing and restoration that is within our connection to you. And all the disturbances of the world, all of the chaos swirling around us is dissipated. And has no power over us and the Christ of our being. We are We establish our connection to the Christ of our being as we prepare ourselves to learn from the Holy Spirit. Teach us, speak to us, touch our hearts, fill us with your presence. Allow us to feel the fullness that you are and that we are when we are with you. God, we want to know you more. That is our only desire. For through that, all is given us. When we settle into this moment with you, as all time collapses around us, our will is your will. And all of the challenges are taken away. God, we want to know you more. Let us settle for a time into the presence of all the power of the Christ of our being. Surrender. And let go. As we slowly allow ourselves to return, bringing with us all the good that always was, that is here right now, and that is ever unfolding and evolving in our lives and in the world. We are so grateful. We are so grateful. And we thank you, beloved. Beloved of our soul, beloved of our being, thank you for all the good that always was, that is here right now. It's ever unfolding and evolving. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please say that with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it is.
I surrender. Hit me.
All right. Let us say our opening prayer to begin this meeting. I am here only to be truly helpful.
I am here only to truly help.
I am here to represent him who sent me.
I'm here to
I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do. For he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal. And so it is. Amen. All right. And they women, mother. All right. So to
I have a question. Before we grew, we got to be the size and for the entrance of technology, one of the things that we had discussed was whatever we say stays in the group, allowing us to be able to express ourselves more freely and get the most out of the discussion. But that kind of went out the window and once start posting online.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if that has been revisited. I know I've missed a lot since.
Well, we talked about it before. I'm glad you asked that. And we talked about that before. I know you weren't here, but we talked about that before I decided to start posting the things on YouTube. And so there's a time where we can share with each other. Where before I even start recording, I always honor that before we begin the time of meditation. I'm not recording the session at all, so that's where we're sharing. We're talking about things that are going on with each other's lives and things like that. There's no reason for that to be on, and that's the time when we can share something that we don't want to be outside of the group. And I discussed that also, but you were not here.
So what about during the course of the study and hit on things that bring up something that may not have been on our mind at the beginning? So I know we do relate a lot to many of the things that are brought up through our course of study. And so what do we think about that?
I guess we don't discuss it. I guess if there's a fear of that being shared, that's something that cannot be shared, or you don't feel that that's something that can be shared. We can always talk about that at some other point, as far as like whatever details that you want to talk about. Mm-hmm. Right now, I'd like to begin the portion of this meeting.
Oh, it was a good thing to bring up.
I'm glad
so
you brought
that
it
you
up.
would understand. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely.
There's no way to edit the tape in case someone should have something they don't want on the.
Actually, there is a way to edit it, but at the same time, that's it's extra. In other words, I have to import that into something and then begin an editing process or something like that. And that's a possibility. Again, but yeah, we can talk about that. You know,
That would probably
if
be.
you want to stay afterwards, we can talk some more.
Do we have to post it? 'Cause I've always felt that my Course in Miracles group was my sanctuary, and that it was a safe place to be. But I don't share as much as I used to now that it's being posted. So I'm going to share that with you all now, so you know that I don't share like I used to.
Yeah.
Because this is why I said even with people listening in, that's okay, we were still a
Yeah, it's
closed
still
group.
closed until
Right,
it gets posted.
Right.
yeah, but
And, you know,
I'm not comfortable with that.
I duly noted, and we talked about this already. You know, we've had previous conversations, but thank you again for bringing that up. What you all are maybe not completely aware is there are many people that are actually blessed by these discussions. And I get the communications, Claudia gets the communications, things like that. They feel increased and blessed by the things that we are sharing. So again, we can revisit it, you know, but yeah. So it's a decision that was made, but we can talk about it. But right now, not the time to talk. Okay. So we are finishing up chapter 8, part 9, healing as corrected perception. We're in paragraph 9, and then we'll be going to, I believe it is, after that, we'll be going to chapter 9.
Chapter 9.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, what page is it at?
159.
Chris, are you doing okay as far as scrolling up and down?
Think so?
All right. All right. John, would you like to?
Yes, I would.
All right.
And it's number 9, right? The unification of purpose, then, is the Holy Spirit's only way of healing. This is because it is the only level at which healing means anything. The reestablishing of meaning in a chaotic thought system is the way to heal it. Your task is only to meet the conditions for meaning, since meaning itself is of God. Yet your return to meaning is essential to His, because your meaning is part of His. Your healing, then, is part of His health, since it is part of His wholeness. He cannot lose this, but you cannot know it. Yet it is still His will for you, and His will must stand forever in all things.
Okay. All right. Any comments, insights?
I was thought it was very strange that one sentence about he cannot lose this, but you cannot know it. I'm just looking for clarification from anybody.
All right.
May I say something?
Absolutely, you can.
Okay, so with regards to this sentence, this is what I understand. That He cannot lose us as part of Him, because we're part of Him, and so our health is part of His health, so He cannot lose us or our health. That's why this is so important to him. And then we cannot know it. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe it means, oh, well, this is another thing we don't know.
See, that's the part that I've been for years trying to wrap my mind around, but we cannot know it. That's why I was.
But you think that might be reflective of us being unified in purpose? Because we have so many layers on us that are not God. It makes it hard to be unified in purpose with Him continually. And maybe that's what it means when it says that you cannot know it.
And doesn't that kind of make it kind of useless to even bother studying this stuff if we can't know it anyway? That's what throws me.
Well,
It's
I don't know authority, but it seems throwing off our ego of this third, knowing more truthfully. Is it something? Remember, time doesn't matter to God. Time isn't an issue to God, it's only an issue to us. We're the one who make time. But I see it as developmental, and I think you do too.
but it's so final, but we cannot know it.
No, it's not saying that. I want to, okay, like if we look at it,
Mhm.
can is italicized. And so what it's saying is he cannot lose his wholeness, but you can not know it, is what it's saying. So that takes on a whole different, it is possible for you not to know it.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
can is italicized, and it's italicized deliberately by Ken Wapnick, and because they knew that it would cause confusion.
Thank you.
When we
Thank you, Stephen.
not a problem. Not a
Thank
problem.
Same thing as
Right, it is possible for
Yeah.
you not to know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. In other words, for example, it's saying it doesn't matter. He's still whole. Okay, and our higher selves are still whole. Okay. However, you can not know this
Oh,
wholeness.
so it's kind of like saying you might not know it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, you can know it.
Yes.
You can know it, and you can not know it.
Not know.
Of
Yeah,
course,
thank
you know, honestly, it could have been said in a different way to, you know, instead of having to italicize it, but they italicized it for a reason.
But that was the way she received it.
Right.
That's the way Helen received it.
Right.
But
they still edited other parts. They could have
yeah, and that's why they put an italics.
That's why they
an
put
italics
italics
there.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So the word is not cannot. That's really what changed. The word is not cannot.
Right. It's can.
That does make a lot more sense.
Yeah. So I put that in my mind. So I might not know.
Right. There you go.
Mhm.
There you go.
Yeah.
And whether we do or not may not be essential, may not be important. Because it says your task is only to meet the conditions for
Right.
meeting.
And to
This meeting
experience.
itself
Yeah.
is of God.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the wonderful part about it. It's
I-
not all up to us.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been studying this since 1985. Studying Course in Miracles since 1985. And it took me all this time to get that one sentence.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably not the only one, right?
Possibly.
Yeah. Wow.
The secret was it being italicized.
Yeah.
Can italicized.
Yeah.
Any other insights to this passage?
I'm sorry, I gotta come up on that.
No, I understand.
There's a question.
Yes.
Yes.
What's your question?
Someone else wanted to say something.
Okay.
Seems like someone wanted to say something. I go after that. After that.
All right. Well,
Well, just briefly, I wanted to say, he has our back. If we fail or don't see something or understand it, he has our back. Just to say that briefly. common day terms.
You're absolutely correct. And do you know how that is? Because all paths lead to God. You
Yes.
know, so really, we may be in full alignment. You know, where where our awareness is that we're doing spiritual, or we may not be in alignment. You know, but at the same time, spiritual is still fulfilled in the end. And we still have a choice. It does not take away choice. We have a choice. You know, but at the same time, all roads lead to California. You want to take the scenic route, you want to go all the way across the other way around the world, across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe and Africa and all that stuff, and come back around the Pacific just to get, so be it. You have a more colorful story to tell. You know? Or you can just jump on I-10, head west. It's up to you. You know? It's up to you. So, somebody else has something to say?
Eva?
Oh, okay. So number 4, did we discuss number 4? Your task is only to meet the conditions for meaning. Did we already cover this?
So you discuss it for us.
Yes, tell us what you think about that. What does that say for you?
Well, I have a question on the conditions. Does anyone understand what those conditions are?
A unified purpose.
Willingness, openness to
Mhm.
joining.
Surrender.
Say it again. I can't hear well.
Somebody said unified purpose, and then
Ah,
you said
Willingness.
willingness, and I said
To join.
surrender.
Yes.
okay.
And I think willingness is the big one, because all through the course, it is indicating that all it needs is our little willingness, and the Holy Spirit will take the rest of the steps for us. So if we meet that condition, our willingness, just our willingness to know, our willingness to understand, our willingness to learn, our willingness to surrender, the Holy Spirit will take the rest of the steps for us.
Yeah, I like the willingness, and I definitely like the surrender, Zeba. You know, in previous Course in Miracles sessions, we've, discussed where it is non-surrender of things that lead to suffering anyway, because we want things to be the way we want them to be, not the way they actually are. So in order to truly find meaning, you have to let that go. And so in order to meet the conditions for that meaning, Zeba, you have to let that go. You have to let go of self-interest, self-serving interest as far as and having that dictate everything that you see, and just be willing to release and let it go, and let whatever will be will be. And just release it, and release trying to be in control. This is something that we all deal with. We all deal with. So there is no one that is somehow not going through that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
This reminds me of the saying, we don't know what anything
Yes.
Exactly. We don't.
So basically, we have to let go of our Burger King consciousness having it our way.
Yes.
And in letting things go, Zeba, and in letting things go, Jimmy, it opens you up to the possibility for everything. See, it opens you up to the God potentiality or possibility for everything. Give me a moment. It opens you up to that God possibility when you are not in your own mode of what you want to see happen or what you want to see take place. And then when you are in that mode, then it kind of creates a blind spot. It creates a blind spot for the miracle as it's occurring, because the miracle is actually occurring around you. And when you're so caught up in what you want to see happen, you become blind to it, So,
And it works the opposite way too. When you're so caught up in the purpose of God, you're blind to
error.
earthly.
You're blind to error. You're absolutely very good. You're blind to, I never thought of it. You're
She's
blind
hot
to
tonight.
error. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh,
You look like you want to say something.
well, it's just the paragraph above it, 8, the last sentence.
Mhm.
When you limit yourself, we are not of one mind. And that is sickness. Yet sickness is not of the body, but of the mind. All forms of sickness are signs that the mind is split and does not accept a unified purpose. So the limitations is not recognizing our oneness. And recognizing our oneness is the unified purpose.
And what's the symbol of unified purpose?
What?
What is the symbol of unified purpose? It's spirit. It is spirit.
When you said that, I thought you meant something.
Spirit is the symbol. I had a talk on Sunday, and it was all about spirit and how spirit is the unified purpose for everything. It is the state of our oneness. It is a symbol of all inclusiveness. Okay? Because when we look at that symbol, which encompasses everything, it encompasses everything. So in spite of any earthly association that we have as far as ethnicity and social economic class and political affiliation and all these other different things, if we look at the fact that we are all spiritual beings, that levels the playing field and makes things more of an equality and inclusive nature, where you look at this other person in more of a degree of compassion than apathy, because they're not in your circle of association. So that's what my talk was about, is that people don't deliberately attempt to have apathy towards people and stuff like that, not normally. But when people don't fall within their circle of associations, as far as your church and your ethnic group and your political affiliation and your ideologies and things that you believe in and stuff like that, they fall outside of your circle of compassion. They fall in a circle of apathy. So it's not deliberate. It is not deliberate at all. But when you begin to identify with a symbol that unites all of us, in spite of what this is, in spite of anything, in spite of where you live, and in spite of all those different things, then you come from a place that is in unity with everyone. And you don't even have to say anything. You don't have to call them brother. You don't have to say anything, but you're going to be coming from a place of inclusion, and they're going to pick it up on a subconscious level.
That's it.
And that's the at one. Exactly. That's the at one. That's what that is.
Stephen, that's kind of like, Stephen took me today to get food stamps. And we had a beautiful experience with the woman who helped us. And I didn't know this, I didn't see well, but Stephen said she was in tears.
Yeah.
And it was like a spiritual meeting, our time with her. It was profound. And I knew something was up when they announced my name and said to go through door 11. 11 is my number. It's all in my birth. And when we walked in there, and it was like my 11:11. I was born at 5'11", and I weighed 6 pounds 11 ounces.
And
No joke.
and numerologically, 11 is the sign of the spirit.
Well, yeah, it's the Christ. It's the Christ number, because the 1 and the 1. Yeah, and it shows up all the time. But we had a powerful connection with this young woman, and he saw her, when we hugged and the way she held me. But when she broke up, he was able to see she was crying. I didn't know. Well, all I knew was that something profound had happened from the time I walked through that door, number 11, and until we walked out. Something profound.
That was a spirit level You were just talking.
Yes,
Mhm.
Y'all were connecting on the spiritual.
yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Do you think some healing took place for one or all three of you?
Of course, some healing took for all of us. Oh,
Absolutely.
absolutely. It couldn't help it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we don't even need to know to what degree we were healed.
Mhm.
We just know. I mean, if you could have felt the energy in our office, I feel teary-eyed right now just remembering how it felt. Like we were in blessed communion.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else have any insights? Yeah.
Oh, you did a good job.
Appreciate it.
How do you get what in?
I said you did a good job.
Just very quickly, I wanted to share your talk on, was it 2 days ago, 3 days ago,
Mhm.
with someone else, and they couldn't hear it on their computer.
Okay.
I don't think the sound was coming through.
Okay.
Have you tried it on your computer?
Yeah.
And it was fine.
Fine.
Okay, I'll see if I can.
Okay.
Sometimes, sweetie, when you're looking at something, if you kind of click somewhere around, there's a little slider that can raise the volume.
Right.
So how about check that out?
I
That
will.
could be.
I
That could
will.
be it. Yes.
All right. So since we don't want to talk about this part, we want to everybody ready to move on to the next
No,
chapter.
we got that.
All right. So we're moving on to the next chapter. Zeba and Krista. We're going to chapter 9.
Yes.
All right. The acceptance of the at-one-ment. The acceptance of reality. The acceptance of reality.
That's one of
Okay,
my
this is gonna be a good one right
I
here.
know, this is one of my favorites.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So, you like to read it?
Sure.
Okay.
Fear of the will of God is one of the strangest beliefs the human mind has ever made. It could not possibly have occurred unless the mind were already profoundly split, making it possible for it to be afraid of what it really is. Reality cannot threaten anything except illusions, since reality can only uphold truth. The very fact that the will of God, which is what you are, is perceived as fearful demonstrates that you are afraid of what you are. It is not, then, the will of God of which you are afraid, but yours.
All right. Getting good here. We got something new to chew on, because we were on the last chapter for a couple of sessions, so we got something new here. All right. Any thoughts, insights?
That can be kind of, the more you study this, the more you understand it, you feel it, you grasp it, embrace it. But it can be kind of shaky and, intimidating, about the will of God. It's like, okay, what is that? And am I going to like it?
Mm-hmm.
And is it going to make me happy? And is it going to change my life? And I think that's a perplexing concept especially for people that are relatively new to Course in Miracles, the will of God. And I think that many times in the beginning of our spiritual beginnings, I think that we do have a little fear of, well, how will I know that the will of God is going to be what I like?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. It's taking a chance, right? It's just really totally stepping out on faith. Okay, I surrender to your will. And am I going to like it? It's so, yeah, it's a biggie.
And
The will of God is a biggie.
I'm glad that you brought that up, Mom. I'm sorry.
Well, I have a little different take on it, but it comes around to what you're saying. the part in the, later on in the psychotherapy pamphlet says that fear, that no one escapes fear. That is the reason that we're here. And it's what illusions are made of, is fear. So when you look at fear from that perspective, it's part of how we were created so that we can exist here in this world, which is also an illusion. So, without this fear, we wouldn't be able to exist here. Can you imagine what it would be like if no one experienced fear? Couldn't be able, there would be no such thing as risk. People would walk off cliffs. I mean, if we even made it out of the Stone Age without being eaten.
It's one way of looking at it. It's one way.
So, but somewhere through humanity's development, this has changed, and more meaning has been brought to fear than it actually means. And when you talk about the will of God is we are the expression of the will of God. We are the embodiment of the will of God. So, over the years, we have become to fear each other. We're afraid of each other because we perceive ourselves as being separate. But still, we embody the will of God. So, by being afraid of each other, we fear God. But we are not fully aware of this. Huh?
Isn't that kind of normal in the beginning when you, especially when you come from traditional Christianity into Course in Miracles?
It's ingrained.
Right, exactly. You're taught
from the beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're taught to fear God. In fact, that's what they teach you, fear God. Yeah.
I think where we miss a lot of it is that this fear is of some entity or some force that is outside of ourselves and feel at the mercy of this force. But when in fact, we are the embodiment of this force.
Yeah, once we know it,
Yeah.
we're not afraid of it. But in the beginning,
But this is the march that we're on. This is the evolutionary march that we're on to recognize that we are the will of God. We're the embodiment of God. So if that's the case, it's no need to fear each other. There's no need to feel attacked or that we are being attacked. Until we can get by this, the fear of each other will stand as the fear of God without it being in our awareness yet. But it's a march towards that awareness as mankind moves forward.
it's kind of an unlearning process too. Because I know I came from fundamentalist religion. My children never did grow up in that. They grew up in unity. So they didn't have as much unlearning as I had. And it can be quite a struggle when you come from, God is a punishing, vindictive, angry God, to God is a loving, God who is within you, who is you, who is one with you and is good pleasure to give you the kingdom of heaven. And you're going,
The different thought paradigm.
exactly.
Mhm.
So it's not simple to get to that. I mean,
No, it's not.
I believe all of us in here have gotten to that, but
We're still evolving.
yeah.
Um,
But we're not, I know I'm not afraid of God anymore. Sometimes I'm afraid of what God wants me to do. But I don't want to do that.
You're afraid of what He wants you to do?
What God wants me, well, you know, I do. Because it's like, I don't want to do it, you know?
Mhm.
So,
But you really do.
well, when I'm in my right mind,
I'm playing with you.
no, I know, I'm playing with
I'm
you.
over here playing,
No,
throwing the
look.
ball to you.
I'm
Yeah.
playing with you, yeah.
Right.
But, you know, when I'm in my right mind,
Mhm.
yeah, I want to do God's will.
Mhm.
But when I'm not in my right mind,
Mhm.
you know, it's like, well, do I have to?
Mhm. Mhm.
I rejected my fundamentalist church when I was 5 years old. My Sunday school teacher told us that if we didn't obey God, that would be thrown into a lake of fire and be burned forever and ever. I asked her, I said, well, how hot is it? And she said, well, it's 10 times hotter than any fire on earth. And I sat there in my little chair and I thought to myself, well, if anyone here is going to hell, then I'm going with them because they're not going to be alone.
Sweet.
And I rejected it. I wanted nothing to do with that church.
And I'm sure she didn't want you in her class anymore.
I'm sure she asked me questions.
We gotta get him out of here. You gotta get this little 5-year-old out.
I was precocious.
That's
How many of us have had experiences, I bet it's all of us, where we initially had fear, but it was suspended because we were trying to help somebody else. I've had that happen to me quite many times. And then after it's all over with, then the fear starts coming back in, but you can see what a key into the pathway that is.
Hurricane Hunter. Hurricane Hunter.
Oh, God,
People, I mean,
yes.
people were still in fear, but people were going out to help each other.
Yes,
That's what
beautiful.
I was saying. I've never been more proud of a city than I was, you know, when everybody was just coming together, helping people and stuff like that. You know, in spite of the floods, in spite of all the pouring rain, people having to swim. But you had to swim, Ed. You said you had to swim, did you?
well, I didn't. She did.
Yeah.
She's, sure.
But you know, in spite of all of that, people coming together and helping, in spite of that fear, in spite of that, you know, something could happen. I could get caught on something, drown or whatever. The waters were rising pretty fast.
Well, but that's another part of it as well, because of what you're talking about. Even though you say the fear is suspended, but it's really not. It's activated.
It's motivating you, right? It's propelling you.
Well, it's activated when you understand the true meaning of fear is respect. Right? So you're motivated out of your respect for your fellow or your brothers and sisters. Right? You didn't set the fear aside; it was activated. That respect, and if you look at it in the Bible, that's how it's categorized. Fear as respect and an awe. Okay? Somewhere along the line, it deviated and fear became this awful, dreaded thing, okay, that went beyond an actual life-threatening situation.
Okay, yes, I see that. Yes, yes.
So it became something more and has taken on a whole new meaning that makes us shudder when we feel fear or read we feel threatened, our life is feeling threatened, we feel that fear, but then it can be activated to much more once if we can tap into it, especially when it comes to compassion. You know, all that stuff is set aside because it's a brother helping the brother, it's a sister helping the sister, it's God helping God. That deserves respect.
Well, if we're talking about respect, I can't equate that with fear. I'm sorry. You know, when I was a child, I would have agreed as far as because, there was a part of me that was taught to respect adults, but at the same time, I knew that if I didn't, this is what would happen, and I don't come from that place anymore. I don't have it. I mean, as far as there's something to be said about compassion for me, which is not motivated by fear for me. And, again, when we talk about the principle of love, it's just a principle. That's all it is. It's a principle. But expressing that principle through compassion, there is no fear in compassion. There is no fear when I felt compassion for a stepfather, who was abusive to me, and then later on I learned about the origins of his abusive nature, and then I let it all go. There was no fear there. If there were any fear, it was fear that I had before that led up to that. But when I let that all go, I had nothing but compassion for this man, and then I let go of all grievances. That wasn't fear motivated. That was compassion. That was the activating of the love principle. But it wasn't until I was able to put myself in this guy's shoes. It wasn't until my mother told me about how when he was my age and his mother used to mistreat him in front of all of his friends. And she would, just really treat him bad. And so it was compassion when she told me that story, because I didn't want to have anything to do with him before. And if I would have seen him, I would have came from another place, and it wouldn't have been compassion if I hadn't have been put in his shoes. There would have been perhaps some anger, perhaps some retaliation, perhaps, now I can get even or something like that, because now I'm bigger now, you can't, you know what I mean? And things like that. I came from that type of place. Now, I don't have that because I didn't realize that, and you're a psychotherapist, I didn't realize that I was carrying something until I wasn't carrying anymore. I got used to carrying. I got used to carrying like if you wear some ankle weights or something like that. You walk around with ankle weights all the time and stuff like that. Eventually, you're not gonna feel them anymore. But when I took those ankle weights off, I really felt free, and that wasn't fear-based.
But it doesn't change the original meaning of fear.
What's the original meaning?
The meaning is
What's
respect.
respect? In the Bible where it says fear, it means respect.
Right.
Fear of God was respect of God.
As far as in the Old Testament, that was just based on the lens that that's how they talked about it. But you're absolutely correct. But as far as fear, when we're talking about fear of something actually happening to you, that initially was amygdala based, what you were talking about, walking off a cliff and people, monsters eating you and things like that. That was amygdala based. Now we don't have that same type of thing, but the amygdala is still in action, even though we don't have things out to eat us and stuff like that.
And that's what has expanded this meaning, because we are not a threatened race anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So the fear has been spread or expanded to mean much more than the original meaning. The original meaning hasn't changed, but over time, the meaning of fear in the Bible, it began to split. And well, for the things like you're saying, and then the respect. So it gave rise to the split mind.
No, well, I mean, I think that respect can also be from out of love, to respect someone out of love. Maybe it was a misinterpretation in the Old Testament. Maybe they originally looked at things as fearful. I mean, any type of act that actually happened in the Old Testament was looked upon as God being angry and stuff like that. If, you know, and when now we interpret it with new eyes, because that was an old thought paradigm that they had invested into.
It was.
It was. It was. And that's
Because that was the hellfire and damnation kind
Right.
of thing about God, that if you disobey God, I mean, you're going to hell, you're going to be punished, you're gonna have a plague of locusts and boils all over your body, you know.
Mhm.
And so that's where it came from. And then later we get into a more modern understanding that fear is simply false evidence appearing real.
exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. But it didn't change the original meaning of the respect
Right.
and the reverence
Right.
for God. We just took it someplace else, and it gave rise to things that, well, false ideas that we perceive as being a threat. We're really the only threat way back then was, well, without the fear that we were created with, we would not be able to exist as a race. And which helped to give us life here. So that fear was a respect of what God did to create us and allow us to be here. And that fear was the recognition of that while we were here, that honor and that respect, because without that, we could not exist.
No, it can be an honor and a respect. You can do it out of fear, or there can be an honor and respect doing it out of love. And reverence, you can look at reverence as far as reverence, revering someone out of fear, or you can interpret that as far as revering someone out of love.
All that depends on what
Because
period of
there's
time
a
you're looking
devotion.
at.
Right, I understand, because it could be a devotion. So, I mean, it is what it is. I think that fear has outlived its usefulness in our society as it is today. We don't have dinosaurs running around. We don't have situations where, many situations where fear from the amygdala really has a place. I mean, if you perceive danger, then not saying to stand there and just, if you perceive danger, then go, run, whatever it is that you're going to do. I mean, that's the whole thing, fight or flight. But I mean, that's an amygdala-based thing that's designed to preserve the species. Everything in here that we're talking about, as well as what you like to bring up as well as psychotherapy pamphlet, that's completely different. That's like, fear looking at someone, this is, who doesn't subscribe to your beliefs and your thoughts as your enemy for whatever reason, And so that's what we're trying to.
Oh, but that's exactly what it has come to.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear on the planet, right? On the planet right now. There really is.
Mm-hmm.
There really is. Fear, distrust. It really is.
But it's not amygdala based as well.
No,
it's
no,
not.
it's
But
just-
the amygdala is still involved in it.
But it's the footprint of that.
Of that amygdala.
Yeah, it's the footprint of those past fears that have expanded to include these other things that really shouldn't fall in the realm of being fear.
So the dinosaurs went away, but we just picked up a different fear.
Right.
Yes,
There
exactly.
There you go, Chris.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
It's still in play.
Yeah.
And for somehow, this got shifted to God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to.
Well, they gave God credit for everything. So if there was an earthquake, it was God. If all your crops were wiped out, it was God.
If an asteroid hit the earth.
It was God.
Yeah.
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 Flood, right? It was God. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now we know there are patterns and so forth. In the different stratospheres and so forth. We know scientifically a lot of that stuff. now.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't fear a lot of these other things.
Right.
So it's focused down to being fearful of each other.
And that's what's happening on.
And where does
planet.
that come from though? Let's go back to the root, because yes, cause and effect is still the same thing, but that still comes from a fear of within.
Yes,
You know, so yeah, it is expressed as fear without, but that definitely comes from a fear within.
Well, we can create out of fear.
We can make we can make a whole lot of stuff. We sure can make stuff. Mom likes to say MSU all the time, making stuff up. Well, that's not the exact words that she uses, but I like to say making stuff up.
Remember Jurassic Park?
Yes. All right. Anybody in Zoom land want to expound on first paragraph before we move on? Zeba, you got any questions about any sentences? Krista?
I'm awesome. Please continue.
All right. Okay. It's time for break already? Oh, I am so sorry. Yeah. So thank you, Dad. We're gonna take about an 8 to 9 minute break. So we'll be back shortly. Chris, we have snacks and fruit and water, bottled water. Right. Feel free to please help yourself.
I'm thinking about growing up in the Catholic Church.
Yeah,
Lord, they use fear.
absolutely.
If you had impure thoughts, oh, you can't get into heaven. You know, it's like a condition that prepares for sex. Oh, hell.
Yeah, the
You
Catholics
can't be
are
saved.
real good spirit.
Oh, you can't be
Real good
saved.
spirit.
Oh, man.
I wasn't Catholic, but I grew up in New Orleans because of the Catholics all around me.
Yeah.
And somehow, the Catholic stuff got all mixed in with all the other stuff. You know? People would say they were Baptist, but they were following certain Catholic traditions.
All right, we got everything, we got napkins, we got forks.
Yeah.
We got
The Catholic nuns were very good at instilling fear in them. You behave and be good.
Get some more bottled water.
Hey,
There's some cookies over there. Open those up.
I'm excited.
Who brought us some cookies? That was it? That's what I'm talking about.
I looked for red velvet cake, but
Oh, okay.
they didn't have it.
All right.
cookies right here.
Chris, would some water?
I would, thank you.
Watermelon? You cut the watermelon?
Yeah.
Sure did.
Did you now?
Yes, sir. I'm getting good at it too.
I see all the pieces are symmetrical.
I'm getting good at it. The cantaloupe and everything, you know?
You don't want to eat?
Go ahead.
And you believe that, and I got this bridge with and hat and book on this.
Don't think about talking about
That's what I'm talking about. I don't know what y'all talking about. I'm getting on the tail end of this conversation. I'm just trying to get some watermelon before the egg eats it all. You know, grapes before mom eats all of those. No, we do
Thank you.
you get one of those.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. Let me help you out.
I got it.
What's some water? I don't get some cookies.
Oh, boy, definitely.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you. Now it's still.
All right.
There's chocolate chip,
Thumbs
M&M's,
up.
brownie. And this is, no, this is chocolate. And there's enough to take two. That's what I was gonna do.
Figure it out. Come on, Chris.
That's what I was gonna do. That's what I was.
There we go.
All right.
Well, keep your spot there.
Thank you. I guess these are. It's more than orange.
She like a big dog back to baby.
Kroger.
Truck.
Oh, yes, that's right, you told me you were gonna get the dog. Yeah, you happy?
My oven is broken. How good.
It's running all right. Shifts a little bit
Car was broken, oven was broken.
harsher than it was before because I had to rebuild with all heavy duty parts.
But it's gonna be able to stick for a while, right?
Well, you know, it's a little more abrupt in the shifting. It's running fine. And I expected that because that engine has been beefed up, but the transmission couldn't stand it. So I didn't want to go back with standard parts in the transmission. So I have a heavy duty torque converter that warranted for 100,000 miles. Ford only warranties theirs 36,000 miles.
Maybe I did.
Those things pretty strong.
It the right way.
Cost me not cost over $1,000 just for a
I
torque
think that,
converter. I got a diesel
I
truck.
think that
I've always been fascinated
it'll be
with
a perfect time.
power, horsepower, and torque. I put a computer chip in that thing
Whenever she
about
decides.
2.5 years ago.
Whenever she decides.
Woke up the engine.
Yeah.
The transmission couldn't stand it.
Ford?
Ford.
Power stroke.
Power stroke, yeah, and transmission lasted about 2.5 years, and it literally fried itself. So I just had to train and rebuild it. Yes, I did.
A heavy foot.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're right.
That's what fried
I mean, I could start one of that light and it was smoke the rear tires. This was a 7,000 pound truck. We just break the tires loose. Well,
it. It's that unbelievable.
those transmissions were not designed for that kind of torque.
No.
Well, anyhow, it's fixed, and I shouldn't have that problem again.
Can't wait to ride in it.
Oh, next time. It's crazy what they want for trucks in this state. Unbelievable.
I put a lot of that,
It's good, that.
yeah.
You got farmers.
You need some water? You got
Got some water.
Construction workers that need trucks, and you got other people who don't need a truck, they just want one. Oh, it's a big demand,
Oh, yeah.
and the people that sell them are not discounting them, and I don't blame them, you know? I was looking at $75,000 for a pickup truck, I think is ridiculous. And they got them more expensive than that.
Oh, yeah. Look at the King
This
Ranch.
one says he doesn't want any water, but if you do, there it is.
Kind of like Escalade. The no frills model is almost 70,000. You want the one with all the bells and the whistles, you're looking at about $100,000. That to me is ludicrous. But they sell a lot of Escalades, man. I see them all. What do you think wants to make a lot of money?
Well, it's Texas.
I guess.
Cadillacs,
You won't find me buying one, I'll tell you that.
Cadillacs are a big deal in Texas.
And trucks are a big deal.
Trucks and Cadillacs.
Got my truck out front.
If I
There you
if I were to buy one, I'd probably go out of state. Get a better buy.
Think so?
No.
And that's
Got
the
the volume
demand,
here.
huh?
Got the volume here, though.
Yeah, but they're not discounting too much.
Well, they don't have to.
Yeah, exactly, because they're in demand.
They're too useful.
What's the first thing the salesman asks you? How much can you pay a month?
Yeah, right.
Right, so you fall for that. They don't need,
They
there's
tell
nobody's
me-
even talking about the price of the truck.
The average new car loan is either 6 or 7 years. You know, but 84 months to pay for a car, that's crazy.
They'll go 10. They'll go 10.
You know, the vehicle may not even last that long.
No.
Hey, you gotta go along because the payments are so high. That's mine.
It's about as much as a house costs.
It's back to that, how much can you pay a month thing? I
My
can pay
first new
$500
car I
okay, for the
bought
rest of your life.
in 1969. Sheila and I were together at that time. I paid $3,400 for Ford Torino, not included the sales tax. Brand new.
1,400? That's still-
How long time
No,
ago?
3,400. That included the sales tax.
Right.
In 1969, what, yesterday, 50 years ago.
Yes,
Now
that was a long
3,400
time
is
ago.
hardly a down
You
payment.
weren't even 100 kids away.
Right.
You know, it's like unbelievable what they cost.
Okay. All right.
So you got a big diesel truck too?
No, but my next one will be.
Okay.
The last one I saw that they had got 35 miles a gallon.
35 miles, what kind of truck is that?
That's the new Dodge diesel,
Really?
35 miles a gallon.
Is
Wow.
that 1500?
Yeah, but it's just coming out right now.
Oh, that's that mini diesel, yeah.
It's a little one.
Oh,
It's gonna
3
be a
liter.
little one, but
It's not bad though.
It's great mileage.
Fantastic.
How much can that thing total?
rice.
No. I was getting full.
Oh,
That's
like
small
11,000
diesel.
pounds.
Okay.
Yeah, a bunch.
No. Yes, that's enough.
All right.
Oh, yeah, you don't think that's enough? You say, oh, I guess I think that's enough.
That's really on the low. My truck is 15 years old and it's rated for 13,500 pounds.
Zeba, are you there?
They got trucks nowadays, 15, 16,000.
Zeba, Krista, you guys
So
there?
much torque.
Uh-huh.
What do you guys want to read?
I'm here. No thanks.
Okay.
You guys are doing so well. I'm enjoying it.
Okay. How about you, Zeba? Would you like to read the next paragraph?
Well, I would like to pass.
Okay.
Thank
Chris,
you.
how you feel about that?
Okay.
Okay.
We're on 2.
Paragraph 2.
Your will is not the ego's, and that is why the ego is against you. What seems to be the fear of God is really the fear of your own reality. It is impossible to learn anything consistently in a state of panic. If the purpose of this course is to help you remember what you are, and if you believe that what you are is fearful, then it must follow that you will not learn this course. Yet the reason for this course is that you do not know what you are.
Hello.
Reason for this course is that you do not know what you are.
Holla.
So, Ed, what are we?
Well, we're here watching you eat a cookie.
Okay. What are we? What are we? You know I'm going.
Yeah, I don't even know why you do.
Messing with it, huh?
He's sitting next to me for the first time. He's always over there. So it's like, I have access to mess with him now. So yeah,
Access, huh?
Yeah. What are we?
We are one.
We are.
Yes.
What is our original state?
Then we just had this discussion.
It's a review. Whole and perfect as God created.
Right.
Mhm.
Spirits.
Yeah.
Spirits. Let us not be afraid of our original state. Let us not be afraid of it. That does not mean that you are any less real because when someone says you are spirit, that is your original state. That is the source of true wisdom, true understanding, and true oneness with your brethren.
So how do we get by this fear of one another?
How do we what?
Get by this fear of one another.
You got to go within, brother. The spirit.
What was his question?
Hmm?
What was his question? How do we get by the fear? I didn't hear the question correctly.
How do we get by this fear of one another?
Okay, I'd like to chime in and perhaps take a
Please.
stab at it.
Thank you.
You get by the fear, beyond the fear, by recognizing that almost like everything that you've been taught has been incorrect, and recognizing that having a fear of someone else it's truly a false sense of separation, and that you are that person and you're one with that person, so there's nothing to fear. But it's really, in my mind, I'll just kind of say this, I'm kind of new to the course. It's just reprogramming or deprogramming everything that you've been taught. You've been taught fear, period.
Mhm.
So recognizing that you've been taught it, you can teach yourself something different. So
And who are you deprogramming, Chris?
who am I? Oh, we're programming ourselves.
That's
Um,
that's
yeah,
what I,
yeah. And so your questions are really leading, just so you know, they're really leading, and you're looking for a specific answer, and it's almost like, am I grabbing the right answer here? You know, but yeah, you're deprogramming yourself. Period. Period.
it's just me being me, but anything that you say is fine. Anything that you say,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
you're absolutely correct. You only have control over yourself. That is all you have control over. You don't have control over anything, any external thing. Now, do we all the time agree with that? No. And do sometimes we desire to have control over external things outside of ourselves? Sure. But
Most of the time.
yeah, but we only have control over ourselves. So the deprogramming is definitely within ourselves. And thank you, Krista. I really appreciate it.
And to your point also, Krista, about learning fear. And that's one of the reasons that it's expanded, well, that it's contracted because we no longer feel threatened as a species. So we've taught fear in another way. An example. Can you imagine our ancient ancestors when lightning first came down from the sky and started a fire? They were terrified of this, right? But over the years, we have come to respect it. We can carry it around in our pocket now.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other hand, and there's a case that I've worked with, a lady who was molested when she was 6 years old. And now she's grown, she has children of her own, teenage daughter, and she puts all kinds of rules and restrictions on her because she was afraid that the same thing would happen to her daughter that happened to her. So she was teaching fear, unbeknownst to her daughter, who rebelled because she had no idea what was going on. But, and so she took the opposite way. She was more outgoing, which just freaked her mother out because her mother felt like she was setting herself up, and then became more restrictive. So in one sense, we have been able to reduce the fear of our survival as a species, but increase our fear of each other by teaching it.
She's projecting her fear on her daughter.
Exactly.
That's what I was going to say. Projecting. Mm-hmm.
And that's the right word, the right verb.
Mm-hmm. She's projecting it. Yeah. Based on what she went with.
Mm-hmm.
And the daughter is continually rebelling against that.
Oh yeah, she could see no reason for it.
I doesn't understand it. They doesn't understand where it's all coming from, you know, and it's the mother's projection.
And had the mother shared with her, maybe she was too young.
Yes.
It would
Maybe she'll understand.
really
Have some
even
compassion.
more dreadful
Yeah.
fear.
Well, finally got her to do this with them, and they began to understand. She was kind of terrible at parenting as well, trying to control everything that she couldn't control. But once all the children knew, they began to understand, and they were more sympathetic for what she had gone through. And so she was able to take a different approach. And from that, she was able to let up some of the restrictions. And to her surprise, the children were more helpful to her. They became closer.
Good.
Thank you, Ed. You know what you just described? You just described compassion and the healing agent and the miracle that actually took place when the children were put in the mother's shoes and then understood and felt that compassion, that uniting, that oneness with one another. That's a powerful, powerful story. Huh?
It was. It changed the dynamics of the family relationship.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other insights?
Yes, there's something I want to say, and that is regarding number, let me see, I lost it. Okay. So it says that if we're, if we're, okay, so what you are, if you, okay, and if you believe that it's number 4, somewhere in the middle of that sentence is, if you believe that what you are is fearful, then it must follow that you will not learn this course. Now, I don't know if there are many people who can say that they're not fearful, or at least I cannot say I'm not fearful. I am not fearful all the time, but there are things that I fear, like a cockroach. If I see in my home, I'll be fearful. So there are other things that I fear, like that lady. I would be fearful about, my children's life and stuff like that. And although I realize it's not a healthy, correct perception, I think it's kind of common. A lot of people have fears of different sorts, and therefore, we will not learn then the course because we're fearful.
Well, when you read the whole thing, Ziba, where it says, if the purpose of this course is to help you remember what you are, and if you believe that what you are is fearful, then it must follow that you will not learn this course. You know, you may not learn this course today if you were invested in fear and things like that, but you're only going to experience what it is that you believe. This is not, no matter what you read, it's not going to, Spirit's not going to intrude upon your chosen field of thought, your chosen way to perceive things. Spirit, that would take away or violate your free will. So if you believe something, then you're going to experience exactly what you believe. I mean, at some point we have to begin to take accountability for the world that we experience is based on what it is that we believe about ourselves.
Yeah, but why can't I learn this course? I don't know on that part.
She's talking about the sentence. It's using this if-then analogy. And it's just to, she said, it's a caution. It's to kind of help you be aware that it's possible to allow those fears to keep you from fully experiencing this course. That's all. It's just using that if-then scenario.
And just being and believing that you are fearful and having fears don't have to be the same thing. Like Ed said a couple of paragraphs ago, we all have fear, or else we wouldn't be here. You know, so that's not what it's saying, Ziba. You're saying that you have fear and I have fear and we all have fear. That doesn't mean that you're not going to learn this course. Like Mom said, it's basically using an if-then, you know, type of logical consistency. But at the same time, it's doesn't mean that you're not going to learn the course, Ziba.
I hope so.
I think the thing to keep in mind that living in the world of illusions is also a fearful place to be.
Mhm.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to fear everything. Even though no one escapes from fear, we can evaluate it more appropriately, more correctly, and put it in a perspective that allows us to move on. It's when the fear prevents us from participating in life and turns us against our brothers and sisters. It causes us to feel badly about ourselves. This is what's being implied here, because the world itself that we live in is fearful. But if we evaluate it correctly, it doesn't have to stifle us or stand in our way or prevent us from learning and becoming who we are meant to become.
I'd like to point out something about fear, just a thought here. Most of the fears are taught, right? They're just kind of programs. And so if you really just kind of look at an idea, like I'll give an example. I was taught to be afraid to go out, you know, during certain hours because it was unsafe. And that was something that was taught to me. And so I lived my life that way. And then when I started studying the spiritual stuff and I recognized who I really am and what I really am, all those fears slowly started going away. And I recognized them not necessarily as fears, but just ways of thinking that can be perceived as fearful, but just a limited sort of programming. And so if you really look at the things that you fear, probably some external source told you that you should fear it. So all you're doing is playing out what you've been taught. And when you recognize that it came from something outside of you, and they probably were fearful themselves, kind of like the example that Ed gave about the mother and daughter, you recognize, oh, that's just a belief and I don't have to believe it. That doesn't have to be a part of my world.
All right.
Thank you, Krista.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Krista.
Thank you all.
My pleasure.
Any other questions, Ziba?
No, thanks.
Okay. Have we collectively somewhat answered your question?
I think so.
Okay. All right. Well, if you have any more questions, feel free. I love it when you come out with your questions.
Don't be afraid, speak up.
Well, I have one fear left.
I didn't mean to say I'm afraid of everything.
You what?
Snakes, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I can look at a picture. He can tell you, I have been working on fears, getting rid of them, facing whatever I realize or recognize that I had fear about. I don't know if you all know this. I don't want to do this human thing again.
You don't come back here?
No.
You sure?
No, thanks. I'm done.
Okay.
Enough. I would love to be an ascended master. You know, come in at particular times where I needed support, help someone, and then go back.
Okay.
I don't want to do it again. I really don't. I still have any desire. And so that is my request to the infinite, is that I don't have to do this again. But I have this fear of snakes. I couldn't even watch a movie or anything with them in it. It freaked me out. I couldn't breathe and all that. And so now I can see them in a film or a TV show. I can see a picture of them. My last step is I am going to go to the zoo and I'm going to stand in front of the glass snake thing, and I'm going to look at it. I'm going to do that. Ultimately, I want to be able to touch one. No, I don't want to pick it up, but I will touch it.
Take it to a pet shop or something, you know?
Yeah, I'm gonna go somewhere and just touch one.
But before you do that, you need to see snakes on the plane.
Oh dear.
I saw that. I saw it. I did.
Congratulations.
And I didn't have any panic or anything else. I'm serious about this. I was studying something from something they used to do in the schools for training young Egyptian boys who were going to higher and higher levels of consciousness. And they were teaching them how to have ultimate, it's in a book where I read it, ultimate control over their breath. And what they did was they were training them to be able to take one breath and to be able to sustain for a very long time. And when I read about it, I went into a panic and had a vision of myself as a young boy in Egypt, and I was in this particular school. And my best friend had just gone through this underground water maze and successfully made out. What you do is you take one breath, because you've been learning how to have power over the body and so forth. And you take one breath, and it's dark under there and it's water, no place to breathe. And you take one breath and you find your way. Just find your way through that maze and to the other side. And then you can go to the next level. And my best friend went through, and I was determined I was going to go with him. And I insisted that the instructor allow me to do it. And he kept saying, I think you need a little bit more time. You need more time. And I said, no, I can do it. And I went into it, and I panicked and I drowned. I then realized this fear, and I'd go into a pool and stuff, but I would never, and I could swim, but I would never do a lot of swimming in the deep water, and I would never go far out into the ocean. And I decided I gotta get rid of that. So I signed up to go and swim with the dolphins in the Bahamas. And my third day out there, I was doing really well, and I enjoyed it so much. Third day out, we had found lots of dolphins, and I had gone out in the water maybe 5 or 6 times. My body was tired, but I would not give in to resting. It was the last one they were going to have us do if we wanted to for the day. And I got out there and was having a wonderful time with these dolphins. And when I suddenly started feeling absolute fatigue. And I was so tired, and I started swimming back to the boat, and I couldn't make it. And I gave the signal, and the captain came, they notified him, he came back to the back of the boat, and somebody was coming to get me. He said, no, she can do it. And he talked me back to that boat. And I told him why I had signed up to go on it, and what about the vision I had after reading about this thing in Egypt. And he said, I don't know why I didn't let somebody come out. I have no idea. He said, I just can't figure it out, but I just knew I wasn't supposed to send anybody to help me. Yeah.
It was like he was involved in it just as much as you.
He was involved in it. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That isn't something he normally would have done.
No, because they, told people how to go and help people and so forth. And somebody was coming, he said, no, don't go get it. So this snake thing is my last one. And I'm determined.
All right.
So I just wanted to share that whole fear thing.
We appreciate it.
Because sometimes we bring them with us from past lives.
Sometimes we do.
Hmm?
I said sometimes we do.
Yeah.
So, any more on paragraph 2? Before we move on to paragraph 3, is everyone satisfied so far with paragraph 2? Does anyone have any more questions about paragraph 2 before we move on?
It's a good paragraph.
It was.
3's good too.
All right. So, Dad, would you mind reading paragraph 3, please?
Right? If you do not know what your reality is, why would you be so sure that it is fearful? The association of truth and fear, which would be highly artificial at most, is particularly inappropriate in the minds of those who do not know what truth is. All this could mean is that you are arbitrarily associating something beyond your awareness with something you do not want. It is evident then that you are judging something of which you are totally unaware. You have set up this strange situation so that it is impossible to escape from it without a guide who does know what your reality is. The purpose of this guide is merely to remind you of what you want. He is not attempting to force an alien will upon you. He is merely making every possible effort within the limits you impose on him to reestablish your own will in your awareness.
All right. So, who is that guy, Dad? Who is the guy that you're referring to in the paragraph?
I think it's the Spirit.
It's the Holy Spirit. Exactly. Holy Spirit. Did someone want to say something? Was that you, Zeba? Did you want to say something?
I said Holy Spirit.
Oh, okay. Yes. God is the Holy Spirit. Any insights? I know there's a lot. This is a big paragraph right here, a lot to chew on. So feel free to take a moment.
I just love it. This, we've always have this relationship with Holy Spirit. And I love it. It's a great paragraph.
We were talking about the not attempting to force an alien will upon you. Holy Spirit will always respect. Spirit will always respect your decision, even if you're in the fog. Even if you're in the middle of the forest and you really can't see the rest of the forest for all the trees that are in front of you, Holy Spirit will always respect. And that is the whole, because that is the law.
Respect your choice.
That is the law. You have free will.
Absolutely.
It reads as if you do have free will, but he's certainly there to help.
Absolutely.
It's within the limits you impose upon him. I mean, the goal is to help you. The desire is to help you. The desire is to get you back to your own awareness and to your free will. But so if you don't get there, it's you. I mean, it's not him.
But you're not alone in your effort. That's what we're all
Yeah.
agreeing on without saying that.
Yeah.
And if you don't get there, it's okay. Also,
Yes, yes.
if you don't get there, it's okay, because you know something? The bottom line is you'll get there. Everybody gets there in the end, and some of us will have colorful stories to tell when we get there. You would not believe what I did in getting here.
Yeah.
You would not believe all of the adventures that I had in getting here. you know, but we all get there in the end. That's the beautiful part. Any more? Because this is a big paragraph, y'all. We can talk about a bunch of stuff in here. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you do not know what your reality is, why would you be so sure that it is fearful? That's the question.
Yes.
Mhm.
And a good one to keep in mind, you know. Yeah. Kind of shoots that a little bit for holes, doesn't it?
We'll give us some more. Dave.
Well, everybody's reality, well, first of all, make the distinction of fears and being fearful. I mean, there's a distinction here. Fears are being more specific. Fearful is more of a condition, an attitude, a way of being. And I think we had a discussion at one time about equating being awake with being asleep, and then the bright light comes on and you want to close your eyes and go back to sleep. Because that shock and that it was kind of fearful initially. And I think this is they're talking about is that same kind of reaction. We may get a glimpse of it, or something happens that we don't agree with in truth. And so we react to it. Of course, the base of anger, guilt, or negative emotions that's not love is fear. So we become fearful of a reality we know not of, because this we do know that we are calling reality, which is we made it up.
Thank you. All right. All right. Believe it or not.
We're always MSU.
Yeah. There's still more to chew on. I mean, Ed, you know, chewed a nice little piece right there. There's still more to chew on in this paragraph. Anybody else? Yeah. I mean, we want to waste the rest of this paragraph. I mean,
We waste.
we can't really. You know, I'm just loving these little conversations and getting the most out of each paragraph, and you know.
And who's to say we haven't gotten this?
Yeah, you're right. That's just me.
Well, at this time, if we come back and read this, say, 6 weeks from now, we might have a light come on, see something differently, or see a sentence we didn't think was real important, find a big deal of importance.
Yeah.
Well, it does to speak to the importance of understanding. Because usually our fear is rooted in a lack of understanding.
Yes.
I like number 6. The purpose of this guide is to merely remind you of what you want. So what do we collectively want? We want to be happy. You know?
Freedom.
Yeah, exactly. You know? And so the purpose of Holy Spirit is just to remind us of what we want.
So keep working toward it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But number 8 is also important, where it says he is merely making every possible effort within the limits you impose on him to reestablish your own will and your awareness. So it's basically you control how much you receive, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Krista. I am so happy, Krista. You just chiming in and stuff, and I am really happy.
I greatly appreciate it. This is a great group. Great group. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. All right. I think Krista sent us on home, so I guess we can go ahead and go on to paragraph 4. And Jimmy, would you mind bringing us home?
Sure. You have imprisoned your will beyond your own awareness, where it remains. cannot help it.
Allowed you.
When I said that the Holy Spirit's function is to sort out the true from the false in your mind, I meant that he has the power to look into what you have hidden and recognize the will of God there. His recognition of this will can make it real to you because he is in your mind, and therefore he is your reality. If then his perception of your mind brings it reality to you, he is helping you remember what you are. The only source of fear in this process is what you think you can will. It's what you think you can will.
You will lose.
What?
You will lose. Yeah.
What you would lose. It is only what the Holy Spirit sees that you can possibly have.
And you know, therein lies our resistance right there. When we think we are giving up something, therein lies our resistance. You know, when we feel that somehow the curriculum is not completely consistent with what we want, and so we resist.
That's why we must ask the Holy Spirit in every situation, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say and do?
Yeah. There was a time at one point, and you and I had a conversation about this. We were talking about this, that I was rebellious, and I looked at spirit not as being part of me, but as an outside spirit. So I'm like, you ain't gonna tell me what to do. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was my whole thing. You know, now if what spirit wanted me to do, if I perceived it at that time as what I wanted to do, what Stephen wanted to do as well, then okay, you got my buy-in at that point. You see what I mean? But other than that, you got resistance. Okay? So that whole what would you have me do to me was like giving my will over to some alien spirit trying to be controlling of me. See, that's how I perceived it at that time. So understand that there's other people that perceive it as such, you know, and therein lies, that's what I was saying, therein lies where our resistance lies. That's where my resistance lies, where it lied, you know.
Because
but now
you thought it was you were being controlled, right? And you did not like anything to control.
And it was a misidentification because it was really my higher me. It was a misidentification because I wasn't identifying with spirit. Do you see what I mean? I was identifying with the limited human. And I felt that the spirit was trying to control me. So I was misidentifying with something that wasn't even me. So, yeah. Yeah.
And here we see another reference to being imprisoned. And makes a good case for why we need to escape.
Because I was in prison. Yeah.
What?
I said because I was in prison.
Okay.
I really was in prison in my mind. I was.
And most of us are. And the more imprisoned we are, the more difficult it is to distinguish the Holy Spirit's voice from the ego's voice, unless you recognize that the ego's voice is always loud.
The Holy Spirit's voice is a softer, soothing, supportive voice. It's not loud or harsh.
And the ego always speaks first.
Oh. And loud. And loud.
You know.
Sometimes it can be sneaky.
Yeah. It'll try to throw those little doubts in there, like, you know, you might get inspired by something or whatever, and then, you know, next thing you know, what makes you think you can do that? anyway? Who do you think you are anyhow? You know, and stuff like that. Just throw these little doubts in your mind, trip you up, things like that.
You know, Krista said a while ago that you have to deprogram, right?
Absolutely.
So if your programming was that anything that had to associate with the Holy Spirit, Old Testament style is always going to be something you don't want to do, right? So to go out to think that you're going to lose, anytime you want to ask the Holy Spirit with that type of fundamental upbringing, it's going to be something you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to ask.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, what would you have me do? Well, take your shoes off and walk in the thorns. That's the way you were raised. If it wasn't painful or wasn't suffering or wasn't, then it wasn't the right path.
Right.
So your resistance to asking, because you don't want that answer. It's like you said, you want to rebel. It's like, okay, if you want to go to the ice cream store with me, well, let's go. If you don't want to go, well, I'll check on you next time.
Right.
And so that's that deprogramming. You have to be able to say, wait a minute, I need to rethink this, revisit this, ask with a different pair of eyes and a different type of fresh look. You know, and that's a hard deprogramming. It takes a real conscious effort to, because it's completely opposite of what you were.
Absolutely.
You know, this last sentence.
Thank you.
This last sentence brings right back to, Chris, what you were talking about in the very beginning. The only source of fear in this process is what you think you will lose. Yet it is only what the Holy Spirit sees that you can possibly have. So, in coming up in the church, they told you had to give up everything.
Mm.
You couldn't go dancing, you couldn't have a drink. I mean, you couldn't do nothing. You couldn't do nothing. Right? You had to give all this stuff up. But yet it's only what the Holy Spirit sees that you can have. They never mentioned anything about that.
I didn't mention that.
Never mentioned anything about that. So it's only time that in groups like this and the Course of Miracles that we see it as more.
Absolutely. Well, this concludes another illuminating
Quick
evening.
question. How many of you are familiar with the biblical scholars and researchers who have come to the conclusion that the Holy Spirit is the divine feminine?
Is what?
The divine feminine. Well, if you look at the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, from that Son, there has to be the masculine and feminine energy to create the Son. So where is the feminine energy? I'm just saying, think about it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that little
So the Holy
tidbit.
Spirit by default.
And I don't think it's by default, just think about it. It's by
It was
default.
deliberately all
We're
of that.
going to pray out and we're going to bless this offering. We are
Every time.
pleased. We are so grateful, Holy Spirit, for this illuminating evening of sharing, of oneness, of spirit. And we feel that gratitude and that oneness in the nature of the indwelling I am Christ. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
All right. That was good. Let me get a hug, Chris. Absolutely. Absolutely. Man.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you. You as well. All right, Kristen. All right, Zeba. Thank you for sharing, Zeba. Thank you for sharing, Krista. We loved it.
Have a great one. Thank you. It was awesome.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.
You know, I bring my laptop too. Kind of here.
Hello.